Hello and welcome to another video. In this video, we are going to create this pop-up menu with this beautiful staggering effect using frame of motion, but we're going to use variants to create this effect. So let's see what variants are in frame of motion and how we can use variants to animate things in frame of motion. Let's get started. So initially, I'm going to remove all of this code so that we start from scratch. As you can see, I have removed the code now and I have removed the animations as well. So let's start from the beginning. As you can see, I have a React component in which I have a button here that I'm using to toggle this menu, and I have wrapped this menu inside the animate present so that the exit animations work properly. What I'm going to do is first I want to animate this UL using the regular animate initial and exit props, and later we'll see how we can use variants to define those props separately and reference them from the element here. Initially, I'm going to define an animate prop here. Inside the animate prop, I'm going to set the opacity to 1 and a scale to 1 as well. And I'm going to define an initial prop as well. And inside the initial prop, I'm going to modify the same properties, opacity to 0 initially, scale to 0 initially, so that we get a nice scaling effect. And I'm going to define the exit prop as well. I'm going to modify the same properties, opacity back to 0, scale back to 0 on exit. If I save and refresh and toggle, now you can see the animation is back, but the animation is on the menu only, that is on this motion.ul element only. We need to add that staggering effect to the children as well, but I'm going to add all of these things using the variants prop so that we get a better understanding of how variants work in frame of motion. So let's do that using variants. Instead of defining these initial, animate and exit props here, we can create a JavaScript object, and inside the object we are going to define different keys. We can name the keys however we want, and for each key we are going to define these properties inside an object. So let's see how to do that. I'm going to define an object const. I'm going to name it as menu variant. You can name it however you want. So we are going to define all the properties inside this object. So I'm going to name this as menu variants. I'm going to set it equal to a JavaScript object, and inside I'm going to define various keys. So let's do this step by step. You can define the key here first and reference it here later, or vice versa. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to reference initial key. I'm going to set it equal to string call, let's say start. Inside the menu variants object, I'm going to create this start, and I'm going to set the opacity to 0 and scale to 0. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to define the variants for this element. So I'm going to set the variants prop equal to many variants that we created above. So what this means is this initial prop references this start key in the menu variants. So initially when our component mounts, it has these properties. So for the animate prop, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to reference the animate prop to a key. We can name it whatever we want. I'm going to name it open. I want the element to animate to this open object, and here I'm going to set the opacity equal to 1 and scale of 1 as well. And for the exit prop, the same thing, set it equal to, I'm going to name it close, define this close here, modify the properties that you want to animate when the exit animation triggers. So here I'm going to modify the similar properties that I modified above. Opacity 0, scale of 0 when the component unmounts. Let me save this. As you can see, we have modified nothing. We have defined this variants prop, and we are referencing the initial, animate and exit animations using these keys. If I refresh, nothing should change. It should work like before. As you can see, it's working properly. There is this another property called propagation of variants. Let's see what that means. We have this parent container here, and inside we have these list items as children. So what propagation means is whenever any of the props like the initial, animate and exit of the parent triggers, the corresponding props of the children's trigger as well. So when the parent mounts, the initial prop is triggered. The corresponding initial props of the children's trigger as well. Whenever the initial prop of the parent triggers, It sets the opacity to 0 and scale to 1. And when the animate prop of the parent triggers, it sets the opacity 1 and the scale to 1, creating that beautiful effect. What we can do is, for children, we can define the similar variants with similar keys so that whenever these props trigger, the corresponding props of the children trigger as well. Let's see how to do that. So I'm going to define another variant here called item variants equal to, I'm going to copy this, paste it here, and inside I'm not going to change the scale. We can change the scale as well, but to get that desired effect that we saw in the beginning of the video, when the component mounts, I'm going to set the x value to -20 and I want it to animate to x equal to 0, and for the exit one I want the x value to be -20 as well. Let me save this, but we need to link this items variants to each item here. For every item I'm going to define variants. I'm going to select multiple list items, set the variance prop equal to item variants. We save this, refresh. As you can see, nothing is happening. Why is that? Actually, the animations on the children are working, but the animations of the parent and the children start at the same time. That's why we're not able to see that staggering effect. In order to achieve that, I'm going to define the transitions in the parent variants. So when the menu opens, I want to define a transition. So inside the transition prop, I want to define this when property. What it does is it tells frame of motion that I want this transition to end before children. Let me save this, refresh. Now, as you can see, the menu animates first, and after that, the children slide in. But the children slide in all at once. What we want is we want the children to stagger. By stagger, I mean we want the children to slide in one after the other. So let's see how to do that. After defining this when property in the transition, I'm going to set another property provided by frame of motion that we call stagger children, and it takes a numerical value. Let's say I want the children to stagger one after other between intervals of 0.2 seconds. Let me save this, refresh, and toggle. Now you can see each element slides in after the other. So that's how we use variants and variant propagation in frame of motion. I hope you liked the video. Thank you.